Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining our onX Fish 101 webinar tonight. We'll get going in just a couple minutes. We want to give everybody time to get situated and get logged in and everything. So while we're waiting, just a few housekeeping items. We can't see or hear you. Your audio and video are turned off, so no worries if you have noise in the background, dogs, kids, whatever. Not an issue. If you do have questions for us, we have a couple members of our customer support team who are answering questions in the background here. So please use the Q&A feature. It should be along the bottom bar of your screen if you have any questions. There's a chat box there as well. That's great just for letting us know where you're tuning in from, who you are, etc. But questions get lost in the chat pretty easily. It's just not built for Q&A. So please use that Q&A if you have something you'd like to have us answer live. This class is being recorded. We'll have it uploaded to YouTube tomorrow morning. We'll send everybody an email with the link to the recording. So if you have to drop off early, you want to go back and watch the portion you missed, or there's something you want to rewatch or send to one of your fishing buddies or something, you'll have that link tomorrow evening. We'll send you an email. And then finally, we are doing a giveaway at the end of the class. We're going to give away some onX Fish t-shirts. You do have to be present to enter that. And then we will post the link in the chat towards the end of the class with that entry form. And then we will alert the winners tomorrow morning and get your shirts mailed out to you. So with that, I think some introductions are in order. My name's Jack Headland. I'm going to be not talking a whole lot today. I'll be running you through a few things, but Joel Nelson is kind of the grandmaster of all things onX Fish here, so I will let him introduce himself.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jack. Really appreciate the intro and the quick kind of lead in there. I'm really excited that everybody's here because as we've launched now into a paid product, onX Fish is kind of keeping up on its promise to help you do two things really well. And that's number one, find new lakes. Finding new lakes, we've identified as one of the major blockades to fishing for anglers to get out and feel both challenged, but also accept the challenge head on and catch more fish. So to become a better angler, we feel very strongly that finding new lakes is a key part of that proposition. Number two, we want to give you the confidence to get there. If you've never been to a place that you have to launch a boat, you have to formulate plans for a trip. Maybe you have other people relying on you for that trip and where to go, how to get there, what to do when you are there. onX Fish gives you the confidence to get there in style. So those two propositions, find new lakes and get there with confidence, is really what onX Fish is all about. But before we dive headfirst into the app, I want to just answer a couple of key questions. These things come up at the beginning of a lot of our master classes, and I just want to keep everybody up to date. So first and foremost, thanks very much for attending this master class. We think that it's key in understanding how to better use the app and to become a better angler. But there's also questions related to, what about Android? We get that one from time to time. Android is something that we are developing towards. We don't have a timeline for you. We can't give you a promise as to when it'll be out, but thank you for the patience that you've shown in allowing us to get our feet under ourselves as we've launched here into a paid product. Speaking of paid product, the fee is $34.99. That's an annual fee, but it does include other states that are yet to come. As you've seen, we've recently launched Michigan. We have other states in the rest of the Midwest, from the Dakotas, Iowa, Illinois, Ohio, Indiana. We're not really tipping our hand as to which ones are coming next, but understand and know that we are actively developing to be able to launch the rest of the Midwest to you in due time. So again, stay tuned for your subscription fee. You will be getting those extra states, especially if you're an angler that travels from state to state. This is a major benefit because it's not going to cost you any more to acquire those extra states once you're signed in. If you're a little bit scared about what it's going to cost, you're not sure if you really want this product, you're not sure about it at all, we've got a 7-day trial for you. You can start your free trial today if you're not already in the app. This is a risk-free trial. It allows you to kind of try it before you buy it. So that's another question we've gotten since we've launched. as a paid product. One more question we get a fair amount is contours. We do not have HD contours in the app right now. Again, we're focused on giving you fisheries information and a host of other resources in a one-stop shop to give you nearly everything you need to find new water and have the confidence to get there. When it comes to HD contours, that's something that's on the roadmap, but it's a piece of the puzzle we've not yet begun to solve yet. So stay tuned for more information on contours. Currently, what we have is DNR state available contours for you that kind of go hand in hand with the fisheries data. So, Jack, you can go over and share my screen unless I have to do that. You might be.
Yep, you'll have to do it on your end.
You got it. All right. So the wizardry was forgotten up until,
Should
let's
be
see
down
here.
along the bottom green. There it is.
All right, we're close. How about now?
Yep.
Awesome. You can see I have way too many tabs open. That's a typical problem of mine. But for now, I want you to pay attention to the website. This is a great resource for you because, again, if you're unsure, you're not sure exactly what the app does, you can click on some of these links here. You can go into the features. You can check out exactly the types of things that onX Fish helps you with, things that we're going to definitely dive into more heavily today. We've got a blog section which gives you really pertinent information for states wherever you're fishing, how to understand data within the app, how to utilize this to be better as a winter angler, a spring angler, as well as a fishing spots section where you can type in your city, let's say Bemidji, Minnesota, or Lansing, Michigan, and it automatically gives you a lot of those different lakes where you can get more information just from the website. So really neat way to kind of kick off how we're going to be doing things tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to log in and I'm going to give you guys the chance to do so too. There are going to be a couple times where I'm going to ask you guys to drop your phones, hands off the mouse, pay attention to what I'm showing you on screen because my ability to kind of demonstrate these things to you is going to be better if I've got your undivided attention. And then there's going to be other times where we're going to love to have you guys pick up the app, play around with it, and follow along. So feel free if you're joining via web to log in like I'm doing. If you already have a login, you'll simply enter your onX account. If you are a Hunt user, you likely already have a Hunt account created for you after you go through the onboard purchasing flow. So once you're in, you'll see a zoom range of where you were last. For me, that was central Minnesota. But as you can see, we've got three main states in the app right now: Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, which is really exciting because Michigan is a recent add. We've got it there just in time for the state opener, which is at the end of the month. So welcome our folks from Michigan. We're really glad to have you and excited to take you with us on this next part of the journey. So the first thing after you notice just some of the different versions of the state, as you can see, kind of these states are highlighted. You see areas outside of the state, it says area not supported. Once we support a state like, let's say, North Dakota, this area not supported will go away and you'll see a highlighted version of the map, just like you do in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And at first blush, it really looks like a standard map interface that a lot of people would be used to using, whether it's Google Maps, Apple Maps, that kind of thing, with some aerial photos. But as you get closer, you can start to see certain lakes light up. You can start to see some trails. You can start to see some fisheries, inklings as you're going along from contours data to these little white spots. But before you even get there, I want you to turn your attention, if it's in the app, on the lower left-hand corner, or in the web map to something called Lake Finder. You'll see me mousing over it right here on the web version. Again, if you're on the app, it's in the lower left-hand corner. Go ahead and zoom into any chunk of the world you so desire where we're supported, Minnesota, Wisconsin, or Michigan, and click on that Lake Finder. If you're in the app, again, tap on the Lake Finder lower left and you'll see automatically a number of suggestions pop up for you. This is a great tool. If you're just looking to learn a little bit more about an area, click on Lake Finder and it right away says abundant walleye. These are lakes where fisheries data have selected for abundant walleye because they've been sampled in those locations. Somebody asked a question, in one of the Masterclass worksheets in the questionnaire about where do these data come from? Are they crowdsourced? Are you using my data? The answer is no. We are using data directly, in this case, from the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources and other states, their own Department of Natural Resources. These are data collected by fisheries professionals, true biologists that go out and, whether it be a spring or a fall survey, collect these fish, measure them, record them, and they're part of a scientific survey such that you can trust and rely on the data that's with onX Fish. Another question we get a fair amount: how come my lake isn't listed? How come I don't see my lake? The simple answer to that question almost always is that your state DNR has not sampled that lake. That's not an onX Maps deficiency, nor is it an indictment on your Department of Natural Resources, but not every lake can be sampled given the budgets that they have. So if you have lakes that you really think should be in the app, or lakes that you really think, hey, I don't know why I don't see this one, you can always petition your Department of Natural Resources and ask them to survey these locations more frequently. Eventually, the data will get down to us and we'll be able to display it in the app. So that's a good explanation as to why you may not see your own lake of interest in the app. Scrolling down with Lake Finder, you see it also points out abundant bluegill or crappie, trophy walleyes. This is an interesting one. These are lakes where trophy fish have been sampled. They've actually been caught and recorded. In the case of walleyes, it's a fish 28 inches or larger. And they're identified within the app as a means to be able to, hey, if you're a trophy angler, target them directly. So a lot of great options within Lake Finder just at first blush. All right. So if you've kind of scratched that itch, you've checked out Lake Finder, the most powerful tool we can show you, the most important thing that I want you to come away with today, we'll kind of not bury the headlines here, not bury the lead, and we're going to dump right into filtering. So for those of you unfamiliar with filtering, you'll see these buttons across the top of your screen. This is true whether you're on the web map, or whether you're on the Apple app. You'll see all, species, and access. If you start with all, a single click or a tap on it, you'll see this filters board. And you can scroll down and see what we're kind of working with here. First and foremost, it's going to ask you to select a species of interest. Well, it's prime time crappie fishing season right now. So I'm definitely going to click on crappie, and you'll see automatically in the map all of the lakes that crappies have been surveyed populate the map with the small red or orange dots. Again, if I click off a crappie, you'll see those go away. If I click on bluegill, for instance, you'll see a version of those. If you click on bluegill and crappie, you'll see lakes that contain both or either or. So keep in mind, you can select multiple fish species, but for just simple usage here of the app right now, let's select crappie, and then let's play with some of the premium filters. For those of you that have purchased the app or are running your free trial, these premium filters, the three you see right here, trophy potential, high abundance, keeper potential, those items are available to you. Once you go to the basic or the free version, we do have to take those away because they are an incredibly powerful tool that we feel has a strong value associated with them. For example, let's say I'm just looking right now to find some high abundance crappie lakes. These are areas where I'm likely to go and just bend a rod with a whole bunch of crappies. And if you're familiar with this part of the world, you can see a number of lakes that here are great options. Let's say we're interested in high abundance lakes, high CPUE. We'll talk more about that later, as well as keeper potential lakes, or maybe just keeper potential lakes. This button helps you identify areas where crappies in that 9 to 12-inch range, those frequently kept fish that are big enough to produce a great fillet, comprise more than 35% of that lake's population of crappies. So here you go. This is a great way to filter for lakes that, if you're looking for a simple meal of crappies prior to the Minnesota fishing opener, it's a wonderful tool to be able to select. So again, these have been the premium filters. What if we're looking just for trophy crappie lakes? Well, you can see just a couple of them pop up as options where true giants have been sampled. So If you're the kind of angler that really likes to challenge themselves, especially this time of year, to find the biggest and the best, this presents some options for you no matter which premium filter you select. And again, if you choose not to pay for the app, or if your 7-day trial expires and you're going just the basic free, you will lose access to these. And I tell you what, I really see a ton of value in these. It's probably my favorite feature within probably the most important feature, filters, inside of the app. But as far as filters is concerned, we can select, let's say, crappie and keeper potential, but we can also narrow down our search based on boat launch. Are we looking for something that's trailer accessible here? Probably, if you're going to try to get your crappie boat into it, but maybe a carry-in access would be interesting for something that, let's say, you'd like to slip a kayak or a canoe into, something off the beaten path where you're not going to contend with motorized boat traffic. And again, you can kind of choose the surface type here. If you're looking for something a little more remote, gravel or natural surface types are going to help you filter for that. You can also look for launches that have restrooms posted, which is interesting. It's it's a feature my wife is very keen on. It's very nice, especially in the summertime. And then also you can adjust lake size. Let's say you're interested in just looking at real small lakes. You're facing maybe a windy day where you're trying to catch these crappies, and it's really hard. Crappies in the shallow, trying to watch bobbers, stay out of emergent vegetation and that kind of thing for big lakes. So you can select some real small ones and still satisfy these filters that you may be interested in. So I think filters and your understanding of them is a crucial piece of onX Fish. And again, to mention, this is not crowdsourced data. Um, this isn't my brother's kids going out to a lake behind the house and saying that there's peacock bass in it. This is truly verified fisheries data that you can count on, you can trust. And really, the integrity of the data is everything with us and of interest, considering we're going to try to help make you a better angler by finding these new lakes. So let's talk crappie specifically. Let's just get fishy here. When I'm talking about crappie fishing this time of year, I'm looking for a couple key things. We'll zoom in here a little bit and we'll start looking at some of these lakes in a little more detail. As I zoom in, I'm typically looking for northern bays or areas kind of like this one that tend to have some warmer water. It's on the north sides of lakes, tends to get more of the direct sunshine and sunlight. And I want to fish crappies during the best time of day to fish them, which is, well, believe it or not, not surprisingly, it's where the water temps are warmest and when. So the afternoon bite is almost always better for me when I'm crappie fishing, provided that you've got good sunny weather throughout most of the day. Even a couple degrees of difference, especially a couple degrees of difference in some of these back narrows and bays, are really important for holding crappies. So that's definitely a really nice tool and a really nice feature. Okay, you saw me dive in. You saw me zoom in just a little bit, and as soon as I did, a whole bunch of really neat things were revealed, right? Which is super cool because obviously when we dive into the nuts and bolts of the app, we're doing more than just filtering, right? We're actually going into and clicking on some of these lakes and some of these areas. So when I close my filters, say I've found a lake or two that I've wanted to target, if I click on a lake, you'll see the whole outline of the lake populate, and you'll see something really interesting. Right now, I've got my filtered species that it mentions, and you can see that this lake is a very high abundance lake for crappies. And you can also see a couple other things. There's special regulations that persist here. There's fisheries information that you're getting, and all of this fisheries information provides everything from seasonal movements to forage inside the lake. It's super informative and helps you kind of understand what you're getting into before you get there. You can click on crappies in this lake and learn a lot more about them. Before that, again, I'm going to show you those special regulations, and you can see them clearly listed for this lake, Cutfoot Sioux. Sunfish daily limit 5, and then walleyes 18 to 23 released immediately, 1/23 allowed in possession. So if you're an angler this springtime that's interested in catching bluegills, you know right away that this is a 5 fish limit protected body of water. So you can always stay on the right side of the law just by simply clicking on the lake of interest. Okay. So we've covered just the lake card, which you see right here. Let's cover a couple things on the map first here before we dive into some of the individual species. You'll see fishing areas are listed, and it's really interesting because we've partnered with fishing hotspots data to provide you a head start. If you've never fished these waters before, you'll see an option here to click on these items, and right away it highlights some pretty interesting information. Weed growth around Eagle's Nest Bar attracts pike, muskies, and largemouth bass year round, gives you some ideas on what to throw at them. Strong west or southwest wind makes the inside corner around the bar more productive. Crappies also taken around the reed edges during the early part of the year. Remember what I said about north-facing bays and areas that warm quickly. This is listed right here. Casting slip bobbers with fat heads is recommended. Even crappie minnows wouldn't be a bad idea if you're, again, looking just to bend the rod a little bit. By summer, look to weed edges and deep water adjacent to the bar for suspended schools of crappies. These are data that have been collected over decades by professional anglers, guides, resorts, and other area bait shops. So this is a pretty robust data set. And again, if you're new to Winnie or Cutfoot Sioux and you don't know a lot about these areas, it gives you some options and ideas. And again, this exists for lots of places on the map. Like I said, Winnie has those small white dots. Cass in the surrounding area, Leech does too. There's a number of lakes where you can get this head start. It's not available on all lakes, but it's available on a lot of them. You will also see areas that mark sand. You'll see areas that are noted as muck, gravel. This is some of the submergent vegetation that you can see, kind of this symbol. And all of the legends here are listed underneath tools. So you can go back to that and check that out in a little bit, and we'll get to that. But one thing you may have noticed is all of these individual yellow spots. These are public accesses, which is kind of interesting. You can click on them and get total information for all of these locations. Remember what I said about having the confidence to get there? Really important to know what your access options are. And Jack's going to show you a little bit about that when it comes down to using the app portion in a little while here. But again, I want to spend some time now. I've showed you the filter function, which again, number one most powerful tool inside onX Fish to help you find new water quickly. I've shown you that filter tool right there. And then I've clicked on an individual lake, single left click or tap on an individual lake, and I've gotten the lake card to show up. Now let's click on the fish card, again, for crappies, if that's our target. Let's learn more specifically about the crappies in this lake. So the first thing you'll notice, it identifies crappies here pictorially, and you can scroll back in time and actually look at multiple surveys and see fish and their sizes kind of work their way through different parts of the population over time. Another thing that's really interesting for you guys to know, every lake is going to have this section in it if it's been sampled recently enough. Abundance is measured via CPUE, catch per unit effort. It's a fisheries term, and in this instance, it was based on trap net catch method. It was surveyed in 2024, and the CPUE was high. It listed as 2.0. What is CPUE? Catch per unit effort simply means a number of fish caught divided by unit effort. So the unit effort could be net length, could be duration of net set in hours, but it's a constant unit that allows you to capture a high number of fish divided by a low number of effort means high CPUE. In other words, high CPUE, as it is for this lake, is good. High is good, low is bad, generally speaking, or not as desirable a lake to target these individual species. You'll also see the CPUE is listed here. It's 2, and it's compared against other lakes in its class. So for other lakes similar to Winnie and Cutfoot Sioux, this is above average in its range. It's actually listed as high compared to other lakes. So that's a very interesting find for this area. It's definitely one of these lakes that you could consider a destination for crappies amongst literally hundreds in the area. So don't pick on Cutfoot. There's a lot of other options that you saw me filter down to as well. So keep that in mind. So we talked about using the filters. We talked about checking out some of these individual accesses. We zoomed around the map and we spent a little time identifying what these look like. I'm going to mess around with the base map a little bit later for you. But if you were able to follow along, and even if you weren't able to click along with me, but you're seeing what I'm doing, hopefully already you're seeing the strong potential for onX fish to change the way you target different lakes and become a better angler in the process. So again, making sure the filters is something you understand, making sure you understand how to click on the lake card. If in the event that you don't want to look at crappies, you want to look at all of them, you can always clear out your filter by either hitting reset or unclicking it, either one. And then when you click on Cutfoot, Sue, or Winnie, you'll see all of the fish species listed. It's not just for crappies. This time of year, bluegills may also be interesting, and there's some great eater bluegills, even some really nice fish in there as well. So depending on what you're targeting, you always have the opportunity to learn more and be better on the waters that you're clicking on, that you're learning more about in the process. Information is power, and hopefully this just gives you a glimpse at some of the power that you'll have in utilizing onX fish to become a better angler. So with that said, Jack, I'm gonna take a breather. We're gonna see what I forgot to mention. Maybe revisit the chat a little bit. Is there anything that we need to make sure we cover before we move on to next steps?
There's nothing that I noticed, no big gaps or nobody saying, hey, you forgot this. So I think we're
Very
good.
good.
Are you ready for me to take over
Yes,
side
sir.
of
I
things?
think so. I need a drink of pop.
All right, give me one moment, everybody. I'm gonna pull it up on my phone here. So if you do have the onX Fish app downloaded on your phone, feel free to follow along, unless of course you're watching us on your phone, then that might be a little difficult. But I am going to pull up the app on my phone here. There we are. So a couple things we're going to talk about during this section are offline maps and then some of our map tools. So if you've ever used any of the other onX apps, onX Hunt, Off-Road, Backcountry, this will look familiar to you. It's the same basic processes. But let's talk about offline maps. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit here. I'm looking at an area in central Minnesota. That's where I'm originally from, where I grew up. So let's say I'm going to go out fishing and I don't know if I'm going to have good cell service out there where I am, but I still want to be able to use the app. I still want to be able to navigate, mark waypoints, all that good stuff. So what I'm going to need to do before I lose service is save an offline map. So along the bottom of my phone screen, second icon from the left, there's a button there that says offline maps. So if I tap on that, that's going to pull up a menu here. And that top green button that says new map, that's what I'm going to tap. And now that is going to pull up this white box on my screen. Whatever's within this box is what is going to be saved for offline use. So I can zoom out a little bit. That's going to be as big of a map as I can save at the medium detail level. If you look down below, there's 3 different options for map detail. And what that is talking about is the resolution of the aerial imagery on your map. So you have high detail, which would be a smaller map, medium, and low. And that low detail lets you save a pretty big map. Most of the time, most folks are going to be using medium. And honestly, high is probably what I would recommend to use most of the time. If you know this is the lake I'm going to, this is where we're fishing, you don't need to necessarily save a really big map. If you're like Joel used the example, if we're going out fishing crappies tonight, man, I'm going to zoom in and, this is the Horseshoe Chain of Lakes by Richmond. So you've got a lot of lakes there, but I could just save that portion of the map if I wanted. If I'm making maybe a week-long trip and I'm going to northern Minnesota, I'm staying in Bemidji, Grand Rapids, what have you, Brainerd area, a lot of different lake options. You might want to bop around to a few different spots. You can save a bigger map and save a bigger area. That way you don't have to save an individual map for each lake. So kind of whatever makes sense to you. The difference between the high and the medium, as far as the imagery goes, is not that big of a difference. I don't think it'll be a big hindrance to you if you have that medium detail map and a little bit less crisp imagery, but I'll leave that up to you. It's user's choice there. Joel, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, Jack, I was just double checking. Are you sharing your screen on the app side of things? Just double checking. I don't remember if you said you were going to or not.
Yeah, are you not able to see it?
I'm not currently, but maybe other people are. It could, I've
Yeah.
already had one AV flub for tonight, so I don't know if I'll get a second here.
Interesting. Could somebody drop in the chat if they're seeing my app screen? I see
They
one
can see it.
person.
We can see it. All right. All right. I'm 0 for 2. Maybe I'll get strike 3 before the end of the night. I'll try my best to stay out of your hair, Jack. Good
I'll
work.
kick you off here pretty soon if it happens.
Sounds good.
So anyway, I'm gonna go high detail. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. I'm way too far south. Here we go. Let's get that horseshoe chain centered in there. Maybe that's all the size I need. So if I pull up this menu, I can then name my map. I recommend doing that. That way, you know, when you have a whole bunch of maps saved, you know what they are and where they are. So for this one, I'm just going to name it Horseshoe Chain. Name it whatever you want, nearest town, whatever lake you're fishing. And then I'm going to hit the save button. And that's going to start that download. You can see if I pull this menu up, it's at 5%, etc. It'll take a minute or so, depending on your internet connection, to download that map. And then once it's saved, I'll have this green box on my map showing me, hey, this is where I have an offline map saved. When you're out in the field, you don't necessarily need to do anything differently. When you're out fishing, if you don't have good cell service, the app will automatically recognize that and put you into offline mode. You can do that manually by tapping that go offline button as well. One thing I recommend if you're worried about your battery life, if you're worried about your battery dying, especially, it still isn't the warmest out and cold weather saps phone batteries. So if you're in and out of service or you have no service, the biggest draw on your phone battery is going to be if it's trying to ping a cell tower, by and large. So if you put your phone into airplane mode, that's going to cut off the cell signal to your phone. So you're not going to be able to send or receive text messages, phone calls, etc., which to me, when I'm out fishing, is a little bit of a bonus, right? I don't want people calling or texting me. And then it's going to extend your battery life. You're still able to see your location. You're still able to mark waypoints. You're still able to run the tracker. You're still able to view map data when you're offline, as long as you have that map saved there. One thing you'll notice there, I have a couple maps saved up by Winnie. They say update available. All that means is something has changed within that map box. Most likely, maybe some of the property bordering the lake has changed, or there's been some sort of update to that data there. If you want, you can just tap on that green check mark and that will kick off the update for that map. Now, you don't have to do this all the time. You might see that there's an update available every week because we're constantly updating our map data. Don't feel like you have to go in and update all the time. Do it when you think of it. Do it, before you head out fishing, but don't let it, I've talked to people. We have a similar thing on the Hunt app side of things. I remember talking to a gentleman who said, man, I was driving out in the morning and I had to stop and find a McDonald's with Wi-Fi to update my maps. They'll still work if it says update available. Don't let this keep you from going out fishing. The maps are still going to work. There's just a piece of data that's outdated. Most of the time, that's not, going to be fatal to your outing that day. So just, update it when you have a chance. Don't feel like you have to do it all the time. All right. So moving on from offline maps, I'm going to zoom back in here. And let's talk about some of our map tools. So this will be the second tab from the right along the bottom of your phone. Looks kind of like a Swiss Army knife there. And the tool we're really going to focus on the most are waypoints. Now there's a couple different ways you can mark a waypoint on the map. When I'm out in the boat or when I'm out, this past winter, if I was ice fishing and I want to mark the spot where I currently am, whether that's because we're catching a whole bunch of fish, or that's where I've set my fish house at, or maybe there's a hazard in the water, that I want to mark for future reference. You can hit the mark my location button. I'm currently sitting in Missoula, Montana, so I'm not going to hit that button because I don't need a waypoint on our office in the middle of town here. But that's how you would mark a place where you currently are, where you're currently located. Just by hitting the mark my location, it'll drop a waypoint right where you are. If you want to mark a spot where you aren't presently located, there's a couple ways to do that. Along the bottom of my screen there, kind of on the left-hand side, there's a button that says add waypoint. Now that's going to drop a waypoint right in the middle of my map screen. That might not be where I want to put that waypoint, right? But if I zoom in a bit, I can get a little bit more precise. And now all I'm doing is tapping around on the map to wherever I want that waypoint to be. So let's say, I want to fish this bay here. I'm going to give my waypoint a name, Jack's Spot. Just like offline maps, I highly recommend naming your waypoints. If you have, down the road, think about it. You have 100, 200, 1,000 waypoints, and they're starting to be years old now. Well, what was I marking there, right? Why did I place a waypoint there? Were we catching a bunch of fish? What kind of fish were we catching? Was there, a deadhead or a log or some sort of hazard in the water that I was trying to remember for myself? Was this where, I dropped something down the ice hole in the winter and I need to go back in the summer with scuba gear and fish it out? Give your waypoints a name and then change the icon as well. So we have dozens of different waypoint icons in here, different fish species. You can mark where a house is, where you're camping. If you're up in the boundary waters, we have canoe, camp, hike, lighthouse, all kinds of stuff in there, even Sasquatch, if you find Sasquatch roaming around. Right here, I'm just gonna pick a random, we'll do channel cats, because I used to fish channel catfish on the horseshoe chain there. That was one of my favorite things growing up. Go get yourself a bunch of beef liver, Joel, throw it out, use a bobber if you want,
Fun
doesn't
stuff.
matter, they're gonna find it. And then I also recommend changing the color of your waypoints. There's a bunch of different ways you can do this. There's no real right or wrong way. Some people will do it based on year and they'll say, all right, 2025, they're all going to be green. 2026, they're going to be blue. And then you can kind of check, hey, how have things been changing over the years? You can kind of develop a pattern as you add more data. You could do it by species. You could say, all right, all my catfish spots are green, my walleye spots are red, bluegill spots, I'd probably pick blue, crappie are black, what have you, so that at a glance, you can tell, you can be looking at your map and it's full of all kinds of different waypoints. And that's where my bluegill spots are. That's my muskie spots. That's my smallmouth spots. That's kind of the way I like to do it, but everybody's a little bit different. You could choose I use this color for spots I want to check out. I haven't been there yet. I'm going to make them bright red so that they pop on my map and I know, hey, that looks like a pretty good spot. We should check it sometime. And then when you check it and you say, yep, there's a whole bunch of fish here, I'm going to make it a blue one or whatever color you've decided. So I'm just going to hit save now. I've got that waypoint on the lake there for future reference. And then there's a couple things you can do with this. I can have a wind direction added to it. So I'm going to back up actually to show you how I got there. So I have a waypoint on the map. I tap on it. If I want to make a change to it, I can hit edit. And that brings me back to, the same screen I was just at to make changes if I'd like. If I pull this menu up, I can add a wind direction to that waypoint. And so that's telling me right now it's blowing 9 miles an hour out of the west. Again, like Joel used the example earlier, maybe you're wanting to stay out of the wind, you wanting to stay in a more sheltered area. You can put wind on a waypoint on all your waypoints to see where it's blowing. Maybe you only want to fish a lake when the wind's blowing a certain way because it pushes the bait fish up the shore and the fish are cruising the shallows. Last thing on waypoints before we move on to some navigation stuff is the sharing option. So if you have some really good fishing buddies and you want to share some of your spots with them, you can tap on the waypoint, click the share button, hit share with a link, and that will allow you to text message or email or Facebook message, kind of whatever app you use. Most commonly, people are texting these. You can send that waypoint to a buddy, say, man, hammered the crappies here tonight. Head out there this weekend. Or when you're ice fishing, this is where I got the ice house. Let's meet up Saturday. Whatever kind of waypoint you want to share, you can share that with your buddies. And the nice part is you own that waypoint, meaning they can't then turn around and share it with all their buddies. It's kind of like if you're familiar with using Google Docs or Google Sheets. You're the owner and you're making it read only for them. They can only view it. They can't delete it. Well, they could delete it from their map, but they couldn't make any changes that are visible on your end, and they can't just start blasting it around and sharing it with all of their buddies. So that's a pretty cool feature as well. While we're here, let's talk about navigating to boat launches, to accesses. So I've got the Cedar Island Lake public water access on my map here. When I tap on it, it's going to tell me some information about it. There's a dock here. There's trailer parking. It's a paved ramp. If I go along the bottom here and I click on this driving directions, that will allow me to open up either Apple Maps or Google Maps, whichever one you prefer. We'll see what happens when I'm 1,200 miles away and I open up my Google Maps here. There I am in Missoula. Hey, I could be fishing in only 16 hours and 15 minutes if I left right now. So that's going to give you your turn-by-turn directions to that boat launch, to that access. Real slick, Google and Apple do a pretty good job. A lot of people are familiar with their turn-by-turn directions, so we utilize that right now just to help you, not get lost on your way to the lake there. Let me get back here. Joel, anything I missed on any of that stuff?
No, I don't think so. That's great. The driving directions is, man, that thing is a valuable feature. You are in the middle of nowhere. You're thinking about fishing and you're not thinking about how to get to the next access. This makes it pretty painless and yeah, not a lot of thought needs to go into figuring this one out. You plug it in and here you are.
Mm-hmm. I think maybe the last thing we should talk about here is the tracker. Do you want me to handle that one?
Yeah, go ahead and take care of the tracker. It's inside of the app, and then we'll make the transition to base maps.
Perfect. So the tracker is a way that allows you to, like the name says, track where you've been. So you can have this running, you put the boat in the water, you want to see everywhere you went that day. You can hit the start button on the tracker. Again, I'm located in Montana, and I'm sitting in an office, so I'm not moving anywhere. But as you move, you'll see your location dot, and it will turn red when this is on. That's how you know the tracker is running. It will um, it will lay a breadcrumb trail down, like a dashed line behind everywhere that you went. So during ice season, people use this a lot to mark out the routes to and from their fishing spots, to mark out the ice roads and places that have been plowed and things like that. I could see using this when we're trolling to just see everywhere that we've trolled, and and then as we're catching fish, we're marking waypoints. Things like that. If you're a boundary waters type person, it might be cool to track everywhere you went and see all the portages and see your whole route and hopefully not get lost and see the route back out when your trip is done. So again, I'm just going to hit the stop button here. It brings me back to my location. I can hit save, but I didn't go anywhere. So I'm just going to hit delete, and I'm going to delete that track. And you can share your tracks just like you can your waypoints. So if you mark a track, we use the example. I think this is really good for ice fishing. So we're a little bit beyond that now. But if you want to mark out the road to your ice house or something like that, you can then share that with your buddies. I think it's a pretty slick feature there. But I think that's about it for me. And Joel, I will toss it back to you.
All right. Like we explained, I only have one more technical flub to make before you kick me off, so I'll do my very best here.
Oh, one thing I forgot to mention with the waypoints and everything. We often get the question, can other people see my waypoints? No, they cannot. We can't see them. Other people can't see them. We don't do, crowdsourced data or anything like that. When you mark a waypoint, that data is yours. It is private. The only way somebody else can see it is if you decide to share it with somebody else. It's not like a bunch of other people are going to be able to pull up their onX app and see, hey, Joel was catching a whole bunch of crappies here. Look at all these waypoints. So you're not able to see other people's, and other people aren't able to see yours, unless you guys choose to share them through that process I just showed.
Great. Yeah, great points, all of them. Thanks so much for taking us through kind of the app side of things a little bit. Again, most of what you see is available on both web and on the app version. If the app on your phone is more handy, by all means, lay on the couch, do some late night planning and figuring out where you want to drop waypoints, where you want to access, what lakes you want to tackle next. But you can also do it from the desktop and pretend like you're working at your day job. Not that we've had anybody ever do that, but it is an option for those of you who are so inclined and won't get in trouble. One question that I saw pop up in the Q&A, it's a frequent question. People are saying, hey, what about bait shops? Where can I find bait shops? All ELS or other licensed agents are listed. So like if you zoom in, you're going to see Glenn's Army Navy, Thousand Lakes Sporting Goods, Mini Mart, and Grand Rapids. If you're not certain that you'll need to want to zoom into every portion of the state to figure out where bait shops are. You can search if you know the name of the shop, or let's say you're just going to look for bait, and in this instance, it pulls up the closest result for the area that we're zoomed in Deer River. The bait shop here gives you a little bit of information. It is a licensing agent. You can visit the website as well as navigate to those locations. So that's a nice little feature. There are points of interest from campgrounds to bait shops, sporting goods stores, areas that are licensed agents. It's a nice function and feature within the app as well. So, all right, we've covered a lot of stuff. Jack definitely showed off my favorite feature, which is the driving, one of my favorite features, which is the driving directions to some of the different landings in the area. I talked a lot about filters. Again, I just want you to know inside of this all button here, there's a whole bunch of power for you guys to tap into, especially when you get into some of these premium filters. We clicked on individual lakes and we showed off some of the individual species data and species cards to give you a real tight feel for everything that's happening with the fisheries populations there. We clicked on some of these individual points to give you area insights. Area 51, I clicked on it. Look at that. No aliens, but definitely a decent spot off of Tamarack Point to catch some walleyes if you're looking in the Lake Winnie area. But right now, I want to specialize a little bit on the base map, the look and the feel of what you're looking at here. I've got my base map configured a certain way, and it isn't the way. There's several ways that you can kind of configure it and customize it to solve certain questions that you may have of the map. First and foremost, the trick is finding exactly where you dial into that. It's this little kind of sandwich icon here or stack of books. It is called the layers button. And that exists on the right-hand side of your app, lower right here down in the web version as well. If you click on layers, you're presented with a number of features. Again, one more time, I'm going to show you guys where that lives. If you can see my mouse on the screen, you'll see lower right-hand corner, this little stack of books. Click on that icon or tap on it in the app. And the first thing you'll see on the top map layers, hey, we got a map legend. Remember how I promised to show you what some of those different features on the lakes mean? If you want to look for those individual icons on the map or understand them better, a map legend is always helpful for that. Again, that's buried underneath layers. But at the top of base map is a couple really powerful tools which will help shape the way you look at the app or the web version on your screen. If I click on topo, it's pretty self-explanatory. It gives you a basic view of the land surface area along with some of the public lands. And we have contour lines. Again, these are state-derived contours, 5 or 10 foot. And you've got a non-aerial view or non-aerial photo view of the rest of the land mass. If I switch to hybrid, which is my personal favorite, you still have some of the aerial photography, some of the hybrid high quality aerial photography listed. More on that in a little bit. But you'll also have the contours. If I click on aerial only, you can study the air photos, especially in shallow water, to try and understand where some of these sandbars are, humps, different inflections, different areas where it may be a navigational hazard or maybe something you'd want to fish, especially the edge of Bowens here in Bobby's Weeds. You've got a little bit of a neck down here that's always a great early season walleye spot, especially when the wind's blowing in there from the west or northwest. So again, aerial, hybrid, or topo, you choose the view that you want depending on what you're looking for. So if I've got hybrid selected, that's the view that I'm seeing right here. But a really powerful tool that you guys are going to be excited about using is recent satellite imagery. So I click on recent satellite imagery. Again, one more time, I'm in the layers tool. Lower right hand, the stack of books or sandwich icon, I click on that. And then instead of selecting hybrid high quality, select recent satellite. So if I look at the recent satellite imagery for Upper Red Lake, you can see there's still ice on that baby as of kind of that March 31st to April 14th timeframe. We go back in time, you can see a lot more ice features and even some ice roads. I'm going to go back to actually all the way last year, and there is a fair amount of history stored with this. So you can actually see some of the areas that were open water, did not develop well, kind of in that Christmas or New Year's time frame. But lo and behold, not long after, they got ice, and you can actually see the individual ice roads that are popping up. And as you zoom in, you can really start to see the detail with how those ice roads developed. So this is actionable intel. This is usable information for you as an angler during the ice fishing season and beyond. I can see this portion of the lake, the north central portion of the lake, an area where kind of the famed crappie superhighway exists, where those fish are pushing all the way up towards Washkish and making their way to spawn on the shores there just north of Washkish. This area got very little attention that winter from ice anglers in general. So interesting, actionable information. If we scroll down to other parts of the state where we look more recently, we can start to see some of the ice out or ice off areas. Again, we're kind of in that April 14th timeframe. We're utilizing imagery that's a composite from a number of different shots and dates. So you'll see ice just starting to pull away from the shores, the north shores of Bass Lake. Remember how I mentioned north shores get a fair amount of the sunlight? You can see areas like Jay Gold and Little Jay Gold already opened up or opening up. So this is an interesting tool for those of you that are looking at the lakes that warm quickest. They're typically the lakes that open up the fastest as well. So just one more piece of the puzzle, a tool that you can help on your crappie trips coming up and eventually on your opening day walleye or other game fish season trips as well. So again, I can click back and forth between hybrid high quality, which tends to be a summer leaf on image, or the recent satellite imagery. And as I look down here, this little banner, I can go back and forth in time and just kind of see how that ice up and eventually ice out is taking shape. Another thing that's very, very neat for a lot of the things we do in onX Fish is utilizing this private lands layer. The Hunt app made a name for itself with know where you stand. And really the same holds true for fish and onX Fish, where you can look at really neat ways to access water that may otherwise be considered private. You can start clicking and looking on areas to ask permission to get on different parts of the lake that are otherwise trickier to get to via public access. You can basically look up some of the same landowner information via private land that you're used to seeing in the Hunt app. So again, a very powerful tool that also comes along with your subscription to onX Fish. If it's near a waterway, we're going to have some of the private and public access points and new and kind of improved different ways to get into water that maybe you hadn't imagined previously to find kind of your next honey hole that other people aren't getting to, as is the case here with this lake. I'm not sure exactly if we have data for this lake or not. It looks like there is species listed. That means there's probably no recent surveys. We can see a couple of interesting ways into this specific body of water that maybe otherwise just doesn't get fished. So kind of a neat thing to look at. Other data layers of interest. You see I've got precip radar, which you can't see a lot of precipitation here just because there's not a lot going on except for the Arrowhead region. Kind of over towards the UP of Michigan, we've got a little bit of radar, but for summer storms, it's a great way to do a quick glance at the app, zoomed way out to see if maybe a summer thunderstorm isn't trying to chase you off. Another thing that's interesting, motorized trails, these tend to be a lot of snowmobile trails. So in the winter, especially, these are great highways and ways to get to some of these backcountry lakes that otherwise you may not be able to get access to either. So motorized trails and snowmobile trails, both highlighted. Excuse me, presenter sneeze. And as I back out, again, I can take in the whole map. I can go back to my filters at any point. If I zoom in, and this is too much information to take in at once, if I'm a little bit overwhelmed, as one can be, zooming into this many lakes, again, you've got the power to break down lakes based on the kinds of things that you're specifically looking for. In this case, a keeper crappie lake, like Balsam, where we go in and automatically we see that it is a high CPUE lake. There is a reasonable amount of 8 to 11-inch fish that constitute a big portion of the population. And that offers us an opportunity to keep a few for the pan if that's what you're interested in for crappie fishing. Or you can select a number of other species too. But again, from the perspective of a person who's trying to find new water, there's no other app that does what our app does. There's no other way to eliminate water so quickly and also learn all of the insides and outs that it takes to fish like a local. Really, when it comes down to it, we offer 10 years of information in 10 minutes. And that's really our goal, is to be able to help you orient yourself, figure out a lake that has the fish you want to catch and the sizes you want to catch them, and get to that lake and do it in a way that maybe the average person without these data wouldn't be able to complete on their own. So again, we've covered a lot of ground tonight. We've mentioned everything from these filters, which I keep hammering on, all the way down to some of the information on the individual lakes themselves and the species that swim in them. We have covered a ton when it comes to some of this layer information. Again, recent satellite data, a very neat way to see which lakes may be warming more quickly, as well as the private lands and all the other layer details that exist there. And Jack did a great job of leading you guys through offline maps and waypoints. And it's my hope that as you guys become better anglers and find new lakes, you just keep the ball rolling, because some of my background involves fishing on a TV show. We fished for 10 years all over the Midwest. And one of the things that we learned the hard way is that we always needed new lakes to fish because bites would dry up. Opportunities would come and then they would go. And year in to year out, the same opportunities may not exist. You caught them here great 1 year or 2 years. You always need to stay on the cutting edge and have opportunities to reach forward and find new lakes. So again, thanks again for the presentation. I'm going to kick it back over to Jack. We appreciate your participation, and Jack's gonna, I think, has some goodies for us. What's the good word, Jack?
Yeah, we're giving away some onX Fish t-shirts today. So I dropped the giveaway link in the chat box. So everybody will need to open up the chat. It should be the bottom comment there. So I've turned chat off as well, just so that link is visible to everybody. And we have had some people send in, say, hey, I couldn't find the link. I couldn't click on the link. I couldn't open it. We'll keep that open until midnight tonight. So if you're not able to click on that link in the chat, you might have to copy and paste it into, your browser, Safari or Google Chrome or whatever you use, or, you know, write it down, take a picture of it, whatever you need to do. Some phones have goofy security features and stuff on them. So if it's not letting you click on that link, it's nothing nefarious. We just asked for your shirt size and your shipping address and your email address so we can A, let you know you won, and then B, get your shirt mailed out to you. And again, reminder, I'll draw the winners tomorrow morning. I'm in Mountain Time, so I'm probably an hour or two behind everybody who's watching this, or most of the folks who are watching this. And then I will send an email out to those winners and get your shirts ordered up. So make sure you click on that link and get entered to win so that you can look really sweet on Fishing Opener with your new onX Fish t-shirt. And with that, I'm going to double check our customer support folks. Looks like they didn't have any pressing questions that we needed to answer or go over again. So Joel, any final words for the folks at home before we sign off?
No, there was a question about full lake survey data, and we feel very strongly that even though we don't have the full lake surveys listed, we have listed the data in a way that's not currently available in any other method. You can see it graphically, you can see it numerically, you can see how it compares to other lakes in its class, you can see it for all of the species that have been sampled, and we can identify quickly and easily a number of features from keepers, high abundance, to trophies. So we really think we take the full lake survey data and one or two or three steps is a cut above that, also making it searchable. So we really appreciate you guys tuning in and learning more about fisheries data and finding new lakes. So thanks everybody for attending.
Yeah, thanks everybody. And we hope to see you on a future class and hope some folks are getting out there fishing. So thanks again and hope everyone has a good evening.